All right, so let's dive into the single leg a little bit deeper and do a different variation. This is the first variation that I learned. When I started, I did pretty much all no-gi for the first year, and these techniques all work great, gi and no-gi. They're completely translatable either way. So, but one of the things we can do to make it even stronger, especially against people that have good wrestling base, is we can use what we call an old school sweep to help make the single leg a little bit easier, right? So we're gonna start the same way, but we're gonna kind of approach it in a different manner, okay? So normally I would come in, shoot in, get my grip around the leg. Normally this base is here, and I fold this and I turn my chest down to the ground to make a really violent pull. And I'm telling you guys, when you do this, go back up. When you do this first part here and you put their hands on the mat, this has to be a full commitment, violent pull, okay? Because people right here have very strong base, right? If you just do this, like, that's not enough to get hit him off balance. Like, most people are gonna be able to resist that to a point, right? So you have to collapse this down, turn your chest towards the ground, and fully commit, and like throw this person. The more you throw them, the better your chances are of coming out from the back, the better your chances are of making all this stuff work, okay? So when I throw him this time, we're gonna do it a little bit differently. Instead of turning my chest down, if we wanna do this variation, all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna switch my feet the same way, but my right hand, instead of going this way, is gonna go between his legs, okay? So I'm gonna pull him forward, shoot this arm between his legs, and get a hold of his pinky toe on his foot here, okay? And this is the most crucial detail of this whole thing. I have to be connected over the toes, all right? So my index finger or my middle finger are gonna be right over his pinky toe. That knuckle is gonna be right over the pinky toe, okay? And the reason why that's so important is because I have to have a really firm grip on this, right? I don't want to use a lot of strength to keep his foot here. If Jose tries to kick his foot back and break my grip, he's basically toe holding himself. He's ankle locking himself, okay? And the more he pushes, the more painful it gets. So he's not going to want to do that very much, all right? He has no power because I'm at the end of the lever. If I grab up here on his ankle and he kicks his leg back, he's going to break that grip every single time, even if I grab his pants. Right? He's way stronger kicking his leg back than my grip is going to be. Even if you have iron grips, I'm telling you, you have to grab the toe, okay? So as I shoot through, I'm reaching under with my palm up, and I'm finding his pinky toe, and I'm getting a hold of that pinky toe as fast as I can. You can have more toes in there too, just make sure you have that pinky toe. Because then that folds his ankle over when he tries to push back against it, right? So, come back up. So I've already switched my legs, and I've worked to pull my heels back to my butt. And now we have two options on how to finish this, okay? If Jose tries to sit back up like he wants to do and get back to his feet, that's fine. I can start to follow him up. Just keep this in my hand, put my elbow on the mat. Same as before, I just kind of pull my knees back a little bit. I come up, and now because I have his foot collapsed underneath him, he no longer has any base behind him to push back against, right? He needs this foot behind him in order to create any kind of drive. He doesn't have it anymore. So I just continue driving him onto his back, and we're right back where we were before, except this time I have his foot in my hand. Usually here I would just sprawl, windshield wiper my foot, keep this foot in my hand until I'm fully outside, and then I'd probably let go of the foot and finish. So that's kind of the first variation, is I can keep it in this hand. Actually, I guess there's three. So I come through again, bring him forward, shoot my arm deep, get that pinky toe. I can also pass it to my left hand, okay, which I think is probably the strongest variation, because if I pass it to my left hand, now this hand is free to do whatever I want. It's much easier for me now to either pull my elbow out under my hip or pull it out over my head, whichever one's easier for you. Sometimes people don't have the shoulder flexibility to do the over the head. But now, because I have his foot trapped behind him, if you guys can see from this side, from his knee to our feet on the other side, it's almost a straight line, which means he has zero base behind him whatsoever. So really, all I have to do is push him over that line, and he's gonna fall. Again, I keep the pinky toe, because he can't kick out of it. Windshield wiper my feet, get to the other side, hold on, let go, and then settle in. So a slightly different one than the first one is I can actually pull his foot out. So as I go, this is a good one, right? So if I'm here, if Jose stays here in this position, sometimes it can be really hard for me to get up to my knees, right? So depending on where his weight is, if he's too heavy on me, right, then I'm gonna kind of well, I might actually do something completely different, which we'll do later. But I'm gonna work to pull my elbow back under me and pull his foot out, right? If the weight isn't too heavy and you're able to do this is a really strong version too. Because again, his butt is on the floor, which means he has no base. His butt is his base, and that's bad for him, right? Again, I just hug, come up, keep the foot under control, hook my leg, peel his out, and get to the top, right? So I can basically either hold the foot, pull it, or switch it to my left hand. I like switching it to the left hand. It's very versatile. It's usually the easiest way to come up, but they're all very effective. Kick through, right? So pull and switch the feet right away, and then shoot this hand through, palm up. If the person has really like flexible feet and they can keep everything flat on the ground and you can't get under their foot, you could turn your palm down towards the ground and grab too, but it's way easier, like a bicep curl. It's more powerful to be supinated, right? So pull, switch my feet, get a hold of this toe, pass it to my other hand, right? As he comes up, I just follow the momentum, come up, drive him to his back, unhook his foot, pass, let go of the foot last. If you keep the foot, he's not going to be able to shrink. So it's very effective. Both versions from this side. So I kick, just like before. Right. Dive this hand under right away. Look for that foot. If you can't reach the foot for whatever reason, when you switch your feet and peel your heels back, the foot usually comes to your hand. Grab that pinky toe, okay? So if I can, if maybe he sits up, I can pull this foot out from under him and come up, right? So depending on where his weight is, you can pull the foot out. If he stays flat, then sometimes it's better just to switch, pull your own arm out, come up. I may have said that backwards a minute ago, that's what I noticed. You'll feel the weight though. If it's too heavy for you to pull your arm out, then just switch hands and come up, okay? Any questions on that? Yeah.
I know when you're throwing them over your shoulder, that's really why when you're grabbing, is that more of a feel thing, or you just dive in there and grab?
Just dive under there, reach as far as you can,
Just grab
and
something.
just you can see it usually because you should be that low, and just aim for like most people's foot is going to be off the ground a little bit like that. Just aim for this, get your hand under, and then slide down to the toe and get a hold of it. Okay. Like I said, if you have to, you can reach over this way. It's just stronger to come underneath. Okay. All right, let's go. 1, 2, 3. All right, so now we're gonna do what we call a hip shovel. So there's a couple different ways we can put ourselves in the situation where we need to do this. You'll find we're gonna use this technique a lot of different places. There's a lot of different other half guard sweeps where we're gonna use the same kind of concept. It's all over the place in jiu-jitsu. You'll find it as you keep the training, right? So as I go, I'm gonna start everything the same way. Except Jose is going to do something different this time, okay? As I shoot in, he's going to recognize what I'm doing, and he's going to put in an overhook on my arm. It's very common. Wrestlers call it a whizzer. It's a very powerful technique to stop people from coming out to your back, right? So as I go, he's going to shoot through, okay? The moment he shoots his arm through here, because his arm is on the outside of mine, I don't have any chance of taking his back anymore. Okay, even if I pull him forward, put this hand on the mat, as long as this arm is around the back of mine, I cannot take the back. It's just physically impossible. I can't hit myself around it to take the back. But he can also use that to drive my shoulder down to the ground and flatten me out, give me a lot of pressure. And he can also use that to start shooting it here deep and start setting up some chokes in here, which are not fun. All right. So we're going to use his whizzer against him for his speed. So when I get to this position, he sets in his whizzer. Don't stop. Don't freak out. You're still in good shape. I'm going to continue doing what I was doing before. I'm going to pull him forward, except this time when I pull him forward, he's only going to put one hand on the mat because I'm going to pinch my elbow tight and trap his whizzer in place, okay? Pinching my elbow and trapping the whizzer is going to stop him from being able to do any of the chokes, right? And it's also going to stop him from being able to use really that power, that pressure against me very effectively for him. So I want to pinch my elbow tight. I don't need to hug his back anymore. This arm can pretty much do anything you want. The best thing you can do with this hand is to actually weave it through the open space and grab onto his wrist on the inside, or you can grab onto his sleeve and hold it. But if I can fully trap this arm and lock it in place, our shoulders are tied together, and when he tries to like get his arm out, it's super hard. He's glued to me, which is good for me. It's exactly what I want. Because I'm still gonna have my feet switch just like before, okay? But I can't come up to the top. Because usually if he has a whizzer, he wants to smash me with weight. That's kind of his whole goal, is to keep me here and just smash me and not really let me do what I want to do, okay? But because his arm is trapped, now even if he wanted to, he can't really sit up very effectively because he's kind of stuck here, right? So I can do this with the foot trapped like we had before, but if you don't have it, all I'm going to do is reach in here, and if I can get a grip on his pants, I will. If I can't, for whatever reason, maybe it's too tight, I'm just going to cup his knee like this, okay? But what we're going to do now is what we call a hip shovel. This is, like I said, is a very strong move in jiu-jitsu. I'm going to take my right foot, the one that's in between his legs, my bottom leg that's on the floor, and I'm going to connect my pinky toe to the ground, right? And what I'm going to do is pull my hips. I'm going to try and basically kind of go across my shoulders and pull my hips to the other side of his hips. So right now my hips are on Jose's right side, right? I'm going to try to get my hips over to this side by pulling them over there with my foot, right? So I have his leg trapped. So I'm going to pull my hips to the other side, however many times it takes for me to shrimp to the other side to pull him over top of me, okay? Once I'm here, I can keep pinning this leg, switch to my knees. If you guys want to be a jerk, you could wrist lock the person from here. It's very powerful. All you have to do is push this wrist to the mat because the elbow's trapped on the mat. Otherwise, we could just take side control. Let me just do the hip shovel real quick. So the hip, by myself. So the hip shovel is like a really important move. When I talk about shrimping in the warm-ups, I say you can shrimp however you like, 1 foot or 2 foot. What I mean is this, a 2-footed shrimp is both feet on the mat. I'm pushing my hips out, both feet stay on the mat, and then I pull myself back in. That's 2 feet, okay? If I do it with just my top leg, then my bottom leg is pretty much dead. My hips go out, they'll come in. But if you do it with your bottom leg, then you do a hip shovel. That bottom leg pulls in and it pushes out. And this is a very, very effective skill to learn. The earlier the better, because it's extremely powerful. The reason why it's so powerful is because when Jose is on top of me, I don't want him necessarily loaded up completely on top of me, okay? So when I get him, set your whizzer. Cool. So when I'm here, right, he's heavy on my shoulders, but he's not really super heavy on my hips, right? But because my hips are outside of his hips, if I tried to just roll and lift him, he's super heavy because all of his weight is outside of my center line. I'm not underneath him with my hips, so I have to roll all the way over my hips and bring his weight all the way over me, which is really hard. But it's kind of like a fulcrum on a seesaw. The moment I get my hips directly under his, he's weightless. See? He's completely weightless. He's gonna fall because that arm's trapped. He has no way of stopping the fall. So I just continue up to the top and finish my sweep. So sometimes it'll take one shrimp, one big hip shovel. Sometimes it'll take multiple. It doesn't matter. And the big thing is that this arm is trapped, because then what happens, he sets his whizzer in, what happens when he's forward here, because his shoulder is tied to mine, it's glued here, when I start to move my hips, watch what happens to his shoulder. It's instantly gonna start pulling down towards the mat. See? So now his weight is completely transferred over to his shoulder. His hips and everything are light, so I just continue to scoop my hips to the other side. Like I said, as many as it takes, and he'll just fall off the other side, okay? If you're doing this and the person feels heavy, that means you're doing it wrong. If you're doing this right, they should feel almost weightless. It should feel so easy, it should feel like you're doing it wrong, right? One more time. So I come in, he's got his whizzer, I pull just like before, switch my feet, maybe I got this toe, maybe I didn't, doesn't matter, works either way, okay? So as I reverse shrimp under him or hip shovel under him, pull to the other side. Up, finish. All right. So a good analogy I like to make with this, we call it a hip shovel because imagine your hips are a shovel, right? You're shoveling dirt and you're throwing it back the other direction. So I'm scooping it up, I'm throwing it back. So my hips and my knee are like the shovel. They're scooping into the dirt and going back. That's a reverse shrimp or a hip shovel. Okay, so if you can do that move, you can do this sweep very easily. But I don't want to see this. If you do this, you're using adductors and abductors, hip flexors, very weak muscles. To push yourself this way, you're probably going to strain yourself because it's very difficult to do this. You're moving yourself under them, you're not moving them over you. Does that make sense? All right. Any questions? Okay, let's do it. 1, 2, 3. So when Michelle goes, if she's more concerned about hugging my leg and she's not trapping my arm tight, there's a couple things that can happen. When she goes for her sweep, number 1, I can pull my hand out and base, and there's 0 chance that she's gonna sweep me over there. So it's not gonna happen because I'm completely blocking the space where she wants to put me, right? If she's just loose, right, and my elbow can travel, go ahead, then when I sprawl, I can flatten my chest out. See how my elbow comes out, right? Again, she's gonna have a really hard time sweeping me. She might eventually get me, but now I'm pancaking her. It's gonna be really hard for her to get any real movement going under there. But if she's got a really good bite on my arm, especially if she's grabbing it and pulling it through, when you're pinching this really tight and your shoulders are connected to each other, as she moves her hips, like I said, it's gonna pull my shoulder into this space. Go ahead. And even if I try to stop with this hand, it doesn't matter. Right? Having that trap on the elbow is really, really important for that to be really tight. Okay? So just think about that as you're doing these. We're gonna review it 2 more times the next 2 days at the beginning of class. So just as you're doing this kind of stuff, like every little piece of the puzzle is really important, right? I don't tell you guys details just because it's fun to talk. You know, I'm saying things because they're very important. So just kind of like try to remember all the little stuff.